In a dramatic courtroom collapse, William Demby broke down sobbing, reminiscent of Nicholas Tartaglione pleading for mercy. Yet even that paled in comparison to Antoinette Frank's disgraceful descent into remorse. These once feared cops were not ready to be slammed with death sentences. They broke under the weight of justice. Louis Eppolito. The Mafia Cops case remains one of the most brazen breaches of police integrity in U.S. history. But while Stephen Caracappa operated in silence, it was his partner Louis Eppolito who delivered the drama, culminating in one of the most defiant courtroom performances ever witnessed. Born July 22, 1948, in Brooklyn, Eppolito's life played out like a tragic script. Raised in a mafia family, his father, Ralph Fat the Gangster, and uncle Jimmy the Clam were tied to the Gambinos. He claimed to join the NYPD to escape that life. On the surface, he succeeded, a decorated detective, minor film actor, and author of a memoir titled Mafia Cop, which painted him as a man who rose above his criminal roots. But the reality was far darker. Behind the badge, Eppolito and Caracappa were deeply embedded in mafia operations, carrying out contract killings, kidnappings, and more between the mid-1980s and early 2000s. Their corruption made them invaluable to the very crime families they were sworn to fight. On March 6, 2009, facing a life sentence plus 100 years, Eppolito stood unrepentant. In a fiery courtroom speech, he declared, "The federal government can take my life. I'm a man. They can't take my soul. They can't take my pride. They can't take my dignity. I never did any of this." He spent the rest of his life behind bars, dying on November 3, 2019, in Tucson at 71, still insisting on his innocence. His final stand remains a chilling testament to self-denial at the edge of justice. Next, a case where guilt wasn't denied, but confessed. William Demby. In sharp contrast to the cold silence and defiant denials of other corrupt officers, William Demby's courtroom appearance delivered one of the most chilling and heartfelt confessions ever made by a police officer facing justice for murder.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. As most of you know, my name is William Demby, and on August 11, 2010, I killed my wife, Holly. I was found guilty of murder on December 3rd, 2013, and I'm here today to receive my sentence.
This chilling act of brutal honesty unfolded during William Demby's sentencing, where the full weight of his crimes collided with the anguish of his victims' families, creating a courtroom moment that left a lasting impact on everyone present. Unlike other corrupt officers who clung to facades of innocence or righteousness, Demby chose stark, unfiltered truth, making his confession all the more haunting. His case began on August 11, 2010, when a domestic dispute spiraled into a deadly encounter, exposing the volatile mix of police training, domestic abuse, and unchecked authority. Holly Demby, trying to escape an abusive marriage, found herself trapped, her husband's access to weapons and tactical training turning a desperate situation into a fatal one.
Holly was held against her will. She was battered, and when she found an opportunity to escape, she did. She was pursued by her husband, who intended to kill her.
The family's impact statements provided a devastating counterpoint to Demby's confession.
We come before the courts this Christmas season, a season that 36 years ago gave me a pre-Christmas baby girl named Holly Marie Drake.
What was your birthday, ma'am?
December 22nd, 1977.
Thank you.
I brought her home in a Christmas stocking. She was a preemie.
What made Demby's case particularly disturbing was the calculated nature of his actions. This wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of poor judgment. It was the methodical pursuit and murder of a woman trying to escape an abusive relationship.
Our Holly was taken from her son and our family and friends because of one man's violent acts. His brutal, unprovoked attack on her person ended her life.
Perhaps most chilling was Demby's hint that his full story remained untold.
I have so much to say, but unfortunately, most of it will not be said today. In fact, I have over 700 pages of my thoughts, feelings, and life history of me and Holly written down in my cell. One day it will all come out.
The impact on Holly's family was deep and enduring. Their long wait for justice, paired with powerful courtroom testimony, revealed how police corruption sends shockwaves far beyond the crime itself, shattering families and entire communities. Demby's confession offered a rare moment of accountability, but it also stood as a grim reminder. Those sworn to protect can, at times, become society's most dangerous predators, a pattern that would surface again in future cases of officers brought brought to justice. Len Davis. In the gritty streets of 1990's New Orleans, Len Davis carved out a reign of terror that ended with him becoming the first on-duty U.S. police officer sentenced to death for federal civil rights violations. Born August 6, 1964, Davis, nicknamed RoboCop for his brutal tactics, was a 200-pound enforcer dominating the infamous Desire housing projects. His criminal reach was vast and ruthless. He extorted drug dealers, shielding them within a cocaine ring that fattened his pockets. But it was his most horrific act that sealed his fate. On October 14, 1994, less than a day after Kim Groves filed a complaint against him for beating 17-year-old Nathan Norwood, Davis ordered her murder. The 32-year-old mother of three was gunned down in cold retaliation, shocking even seasoned investigators. At trial, Davis defiantly proclaimed, "The federal government can take my life. I'm a man. They can't take my soul. They can't take my pride. They can't take my dignity. I was a hardworking cop. I never hurt anybody. I never kidnapped anybody. I never did any of this." But his corruption ran deeper. Investigators uncovered that Davis had framed at least 5 men: Burnell Jaluki Jr., Leroy Nelson, Kunta Gable, Sherman Singleton, and Dwayne LeBlanc, wrongfully imprisoning them for a combined 140 years on murder charges. In an extraordinary twist, after President Joe Biden commuted his death sentence to life imprisonment on December 23, 2024, Davis shockingly filed an emergency injunction seeking to reinstate his death penalty, a stark testament to his relentless defiance. As we explore more cases of corrupt officers meeting justice, another New Orleans cop awaits, a man whose crimes were just as shocking, but whose story carries a far more tragic weight. Antoinette Frank. Antoinette Frank's story is a haunting tale of trauma spiraling into violence, culminating in one of America's most shocking police corruption cases. Born April 30th, 1971, in Opelousas, Louisiana, Frank's path from abused child to the only woman on Louisiana's death row reveals a tragic collision of personal suffering and criminal justice. Despite failing 2 psychiatric exams and lying on her application, Frank was hired by the New Orleans Police Department against expert advice. Though she excelled academically and earned Officer of the Month honors, supervisors noted her erratic, indecisive behavior and frequent psychological reviews. On March 4th, 1995, Frank and her probable lover, drug dealer Rogers Lacaze, carried out an armed robbery at the Kim-On restaurant that ended in the murders of 2 patrons and NOPD officer Ronald Williams II. Chillingly, Frank returned in a police car, feigning investigation while asking a survivor hiding in a freezer what had happened. Unlike other corrupt cops who react with defiance or emotion, Frank's response to her death sentence, handed down on October 20th, 1995 after a swift jury verdict, was cold and detached, masking a deeply traumatic past. Her criminality traced back to horrific childhood abuse by her father, a Vietnam vet with PTSD, including physical violence and incestuous rape. While her family escaped, Frank remained behind, described by experts as payment for their freedom. Adding to the darkness, her father vanished in 1993. His skull was later found buried beneath her house. Her toxic relationship with Lacaze exploited her diagnosed PTSD and dependent personality disorder, making her vulnerable to manipulation. Now awaiting execution with appeals pending, Frank's case exposes the complex overlap of victim and perpetrator, an unsettling duality that echoes in the next chapter of New York's history of police corruption. Stephen Caracappa. Stephen Caracappa's fall from grace began in the NYPD's Organized Crime Homicide Unit, where his access to sensitive intelligence became a goldmine for the Lucchese crime family. Alongside partner Louis Eppolito, Caracappa took $375,000 in bribes and murder contracts, including $70,000 for a single hit, and actively participated in at least 8 murders, personally carrying out 2. Their criminal reach was staggering. They sabotaged state and federal investigations by leaking witness names, compromising surveillance, and exposing phone taps. A Lucchese boss called them his crystal ball, underscoring their value as inside men. Their victim list reads like a who's who of mafia casualties, including James Hydell, Nicholas Guido, and Bartholomew Borriello. They even plotted to kill high-profile figure Salvatore Sammy the Bull Gravano. At sentencing on March 6, 2009, Caracappa showed no emotion, receiving life plus 80 years and a $4 million million fine. Known as the Stick for his tall, lean frame, he maintained a polite, unassuming facade, living in Staten Island and later Las Vegas, masking decades of corruption. Caracappa joined the NYPD in 1969, became a detective in 1979, and even appeared briefly in Goodfellas. He retired in 1992 on disability, but his criminal activity continued into retirement. His downfall began with a FBI raid in 2005. He died in prison on April 8, 2017, at 74 from stage 4 cancer, ending a life marked by betrayal beneath a veneer of respectability.